So education sector, the sales cycles are super long. It can be anything from 6 months to a year or to 4 years. It's
Crikey,
really,
darling.
if you've had that prior experience and knowledge of the sector and the right people, you're shortening the sales cycle basically. So it's super important to bring people who already have the connections with the education sector.
This is the most gorgeous conversation, and it's a shame we didn't carry on recording actually once we'd finished the episode, because we ended up going down this whole spiritual conversation, which I just love chats like that. But for the purpose of the Recruiters Recruitment podcast, let me welcome to you today Emilia Kruszewska. She is a founder who launched her business RecruitHer, having had a very unusual journey to becoming a recruitment entrepreneur. She is an exited founder of a school. She's an ex-educator herself, and her business places go-to-market strategists within the edtech space across Europe and the UK. She's got a real niche, which she does come on to explain in the conversation that we have. And I think you're going to absolutely love her humility, her amazing journey to becoming an exited founder, and how she launched her business only a year or so ago. She lives in the Garden of England, I should say, in Kent, but she's originally from Poland, and she's an incredibly passionate lady about sales and diversity. We do talk around EDI as well, which is a topic that seems to have fallen off the podcast trail, and I want to bring it back because we should still be thinking about diversity. We should still be thinking about creating places that are truly inclusive for all. I can't wait for you to get to know Emilia, so let's go. This is Lysha Holmes, and I'm your host on the Recruiters Recruitment podcast, and I am so excited on so many levels to introduce to our global community today a founder of a business who is based in the Garden of England, but is actually from Europe, and I can't wait for you to get to know her niche, her background, because it is a little bit different from founders that we've had on over previous 6 seasons, and we're going to talk about some really interesting topics today. So this is Emilia Kruszewska. I really hope I've said that right. And she's CEO and founder of RecruitHer. She's a fellow of the European EdTech Alliance and founder of EndurHer. So welcome to you today, Emilia. How are you?
Thank you, Lysha, for having me. I'm very good today. Thank you so much. Yeah, as I said, thank you so much for having me. Lovely to be here and share a little bit more about my story with RecruitHer.
Cannot wait to do that. So you're originally from Poland and you've been in Kent for 10 years, I believe.
Yes, exactly. Yes. In the UK for around 18 years. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Long time. So I call it my first home now, not second home.
Absolutely. And you chose a beautiful part of the UK to base yourself in Kent. We were just talking about that off camera. It's a very beautiful, and it's got a lot of history, because obviously it's where, you know, they landed for the Battle of Hastings all those years back in 1066, how things could have been so different. So I've had the privilege of, this is I think our second or third Zoom that we've done in the last few months, but tell us about your story and how you have launched in a very niche market, which is EdTech. Go for it.
Okay.
You can tell us about stuff you want, what it is.
So EdTech is education technology. So it's a type of technology that supports education institutions.
Okay.
I'm a former educator, so I used to be a teacher. Surprisingly, I taught English as a second language. And surprisingly, I actually opened a language school in North London, which I was running for 7 years before I sold it to a competitor. And after that, I moved into higher ed, so higher education, and then I transitioned into different edtech organizations, global edtech organizations. So that's kind of passion for education, for impact has always been with me, and I guess that's the main reason why the reason I started RecruitHer is basically to bring more people from within education into edtech.
Oh my God, that's
yes.
So just so I'm clear, so you are a teacher. So what age were you teaching?
Well, I was teaching kids at the very beginning, but then I started teaching adults at home. Yeah. And one of my students, he was a journalist. He said basically that I'm really good at what I'm doing and I should open a language school. So at the end of his course, we sat down, we wrote a business plan. And that was the last time I saw him. But I implemented the business plan, so I was running the school. So that was amazing.
God, that's like, for me, it's such a sliding door serendipitous moment that had you not done that in the first place, you never would have met him. You never would have sat down and done the business.
No.
So you were a founder then. You launched a language school. So this was for adults, or was this for
That
children?
was,
Mainly for adults.
yes, it was for adults. So I started basically from zero, and then when I sold it, I had around 120 students.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
set the business up with the intention, the school up with the intention of selling it, or did that happen by accident?
Not necessarily. I think so at the very beginning, I was kind of working for 2 years. I was working 7 days a week, and I was really passionate about it. But then after 7 years, I guess different things collided, and I felt that I needed a break, basically. So many personal reasons, I would say. But no, I didn't really realize that I wanted to sell it. But it occurred to me that I can, and I did. So yeah,
I mean,
why not?
huge kudos to you, because
Thank you.
not many, first of all, there's not many people that actually do achieve a sale and exit a business, and there's definitely not enough females that do it. So
Yeah,
we know that the
thank you.
percentage is still in single digits in the UK.
Yes. Yeah,
and that's across
yeah.
all industries, not just, I mean, this wasn't recruitment at the time, but that is phenomenal. So huge respect to you. And, you know, that puts you into, for me, in terms of credibility and gravitas as we're going to listen to your story now. I'm sat here on 10 Talks, like wanting to open up your brain and understand how you did these things. So in terms of education technology, so just so I'm clear, because I mean, I've not been in the education sector. My daughter's left school and left the education world a very long time ago. What are we talking about? Are we talking the software that the children use, or is this to run the schools? What are we talking about?
Yeah, any type. So basically, EdTech, I see it has two paths. So one is the corporate one is the education one.
Okay.
So if we're talking about corporate, it's any technology that supports HR or L&D, basically. And in terms of education, you have almost every single department within the university or school using some sort of software, and this is basically EdTech. So it could be HR, it could be student information system, assessment, proctoring, like all careers, even use different edtech products. So it's at the almost in every single department that edtech is used.
And then are you connecting the actual the developers and the companies that are actually coming up with the software, or what? Like, who are you connecting?
So I've used to do, like, I would say my forte is go to market. So I'm focusing on go to market teams, so people who have potentially worked in education and they have already transitioned into edtech and now looking for a new challenge.
Okay.
Obviously, my company's name is RecruitHer, so I champion female leadership, so predominantly working with women, but I don't necessarily exclude anyone. So whenever there is a post, obviously, I interview anyone who kind of comes up, and so it's more about the person rather than the gender, I would say, and the skills and the contribution that they can give to the company. Yeah.
Where are we at in terms of the evolution? And this will be a very different answer even in a year's time with AI within EdTech.
Good question. I mean, it really depends which country and which territory we're looking into and how much funds are available. But obviously AI is changing the landscape of education significantly, not only from the operational perspective, how streamlined the processes are within schools and universities, but also on the delivery. So student journey, learning outcomes, that's really much kind of part of almost every edtech now. Sometimes it's only the feature, sadly. So it's one of the development things that they do is like adding the feature. I think seeing the impact of AI on a broader scale and sorry, I'm going very niche. Like, I'm super passionate about this, but helping students and anyone who is learning navigate their learning journey and finding out where are the gaps, for example, in terms of learning, AI will have and has or is having big impact.
Yeah. So I mean, it's such a huge minefield, both from a
It is
human perspective, as a supplier to the industry, which obviously you've got multi-layers to your knowledge base, but also in terms of we need to ensure that we're educating Gen Alpha and the future generations in terms of, I mean, that will just become second nature, right? But also ensuring that we're protecting the ethics of what we do and how it's done. So you focus on the go-to-market. Was there a particular reason that from such a broad industry that you decided to focus in on the sales and the go-to-market people?
I guess it was something that I have more expertise in, and thought that it would be a good starting point for me to start with kind of people in sales, customer success, product, and project. So it's a little bit wider than I used to do, but these are the kind of roles that I'm focusing on at the moment. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So talk to us about, the business that you've launched. What was your strategy behind doing it? And how many people do you have working for you, and where's your growth model? Talk us through that.
Yeah, I would say that although I started a year ago, I feel like I'm still in the kind of growing and kind of defining some of the things, some of the assumptions I think that I made at the very beginning. So obviously my aim was to bring more people from within education, more female, but then having done the research at the very beginning, the research, I would say 8 months in, it kind of changed my perspective a little bit. So I had to kind of shift the strategy and focus. So originally my aim was to work with people or EdTech organizations that are based in the UK. But what seemed to be working now is that I'm working or I collaborate with EdTech organizations that are based outside of the UK, and they want to get into the UK market. Basically, they want to get into UK market, or they want to go somewhere basically in a different market than they are at the moment. So, for example, currently I'm working with a Spanish EdTech, and they are they're building their department, B2B department in the UK. So I'm helping with that. There's also the Danish company. They're looking for folks in kind of Germany and the Nordics as well. So I'm helping with that. And that seems to be my niche. So it's EdTech, but also international, not necessarily the UK. And I guess that probably it's because maybe, I don't know, is it because I'm foreign? And they feel like that's what I'm finding basically. Yeah, the international aspect is kind of feels it's more aligned in the UK for some reason. So yeah.
Very possibly. And then where does that sit in terms of where their strategy is, if they're looking at you and implementing themselves into Europe or the UK, as you say? Have you then buddied up with a company that does more on the technical side, for example, and places the technical people? Or an area of it?
Yes. So I do have some people, but I would say that at the moment it's predominantly go to market, and I'm trying to kind of research the more technical aspects. So I have a few friends and people that I know that they are like CTOs, so are getting more information from them, but also getting more information from the actual individuals, so employees working. So that's I'm doing my research at the moment. So I'm in the learning phase of the more technical roles.
That's your own personal learning journey, which I love that you're doing that. So in terms of, I mean, I guess understanding the motion of the market, you came from the sector, you came from education, you've got that level of credibility, you understand. Is that still where you'll find the best go-to-market salespeople? Have they worked in the space? Have they worked in education themselves?
I mean, so education sector and selling to education sector is not the easiest cup of tea, to be honest with you. I mean, the sales cycles are super long.
Oh wow.
And I think they're like it can be anything from 6 months to a year or to 4 years. It's really,
darling.
Yeah, it is really, really tricky. And I think my theory and what I've seen in practice as well, because I moved from higher education into sales in EdTech, if you have that kind of prior experience and knowledge of the sector and the right people, you're shortening the time that the sales cycle basically. So it's super important from my perspective to bring people who already have the connections with the education sector. So, if someone is looking to sell into universities, I would bring someone who has already built the relationship with the universities in order to sell to them, because of the sales cycle and how long it takes. It's a kind of...
Yeah, you're having to sell through the sort of knowledge of how the bureaucracy works, but equally knowing the people. Do you have to sell through the LEAs then, or is it individual decision makers?
It's education sector is really bureaucratic. There's so much red tape in bureaucracy. I mean, this was the main reason why I left. I was implementing an IT project, and it took us 3 years.
Wow.
Coming from my own running my own company and implementing different things within hours, basically. 3 years to, 3 years is a long time for IT project, knowing that you're losing money and you're losing customers, basically. So that was quite frustrating. And I mean, things are changing within the edtech. Stakeholders are changing. There are many stakeholders that you need to have approval from. There's also procurement, which is very often, it's taking years to sign this deal. Everything is done, and then procurement will come. Obviously, you know how it works, right? And then, it's just a really, really long process. So sometimes you have, 12 people signing, in the meetings, basically. And if you're imagining 12 different stakeholders with different priorities, and you have to address them, so it's really difficult to navigate.
Different buying needs, different thought processes. They're going to have different challenges.
Exactly. And so it makes the sales in education a little bit trickier, and it's not necessarily. And that's why I think for me it was a big shift when I moved into recruitment, because it's such a fast-paced environment, and I was used to maybe a little bit slower pace of a sales process, and building the trust and having the kind of longer, it was much longer in comparison to the recruitment. So for me it was also a learning curve.
Shift that. So and obviously you mentioned very succinctly that you from a diversity perspective, yes, your brand is RecruitHer, but you ensure that it's the right fit. So where is EDI now within your space? Because being really cynical, I think it seems to become quite a passé topic. It was certainly really hot sort of post-COVID. We partnered ourselves with Jo Major at Diversity and Recruitment, and it seemed to just, she was booked up to the eyeballs with recruitment companies. But it seems to be that we've almost forgotten to talk about diversity, and maybe that's just the tone of the world right now, with the sort of patriarchy governing what we're doing across some of the nations that we happen to sit in. But where is diversity in terms of the agenda, I guess, in the edtech space?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's, geopolitical situation affects all sectors. It also affects, edtech. Earlier this year, I went to BET. BET is like this massive event, conference, basically, in Excel for education and edtech. And I went with a mission to kind of do my further research, basically, to understand what my ICPs really want. And one of the questions was related to diversity and how important it is. And obviously, they all mentioned that it's not really priority for them. It's more about who is the top candidate, but also ask question what is the percentage of female versus male?
Yeah.
And it was shocking to be honest with you. I know there's one company, I think they said, we have it's relatively small. We have 10 people and 9 of them are men, and we have one person working as an administrator, basically. So I would say that in general, education sector is really, if you think of primary schools, 80% people are women, not necessarily in the leadership positions. Higher ed is also aware of the diversity and that we have to bring more diverse talent. But I think in terms of edtech, it falls, it doesn't really, I don't want to say it doesn't really care, because there are companies who are looking for example, ethnically diverse talent. So that's one of the questions that I kind of had. So there are some companies who understand why it's important to have diverse teams. And I don't know if you've read the book Rebel Ideas, but Matthew Syed, but he explains very clearly, within a picture, how important it is to have people from different backgrounds, and how it affects the profitability, creativity of a company. So basically, teams that are more diverse bring 20%.
Absolutely.
20% more growth, basically, in productivity. So I mean, there's
the data
easy calculation. Yeah, the data is there. The data
is there. You don't need to convince me. The data is there. when I talk about diversity, I don't just mean gender, I don't just mean ethnicity. I'm talking about neurodiversity. You're talking about, the intersectionality of what makes each and every one of us human that's listening now. That could be culturally, it could be from, the geographical diversity as well. And I think I'm always really surprised when it's a sector like EdTech, where, the very premise of it's educational, you'd think that they would be almost at the forefront of understanding why that would make them more creative, more effective. And also,
especially when you're building a product, for end user, and the end users are students, right, or teachers, and this is a very diverse group of
yeah,
people.
of course.
So if you want to address all their pain points, it's important to have people who understand those pain points.
Pain point.
Yeah.
And this is where, being really controversial, this is where AI, well, there's two schools of thought, aren't there? That AI should, in theory, make it much more effective and, dare I say, easier to be able to do that. But then there is a lot of data now around the fact that AI can actually create more diversion from diversity. It's actually doing the opposite. That
it is, and it is doing the opposite. But I think that my perspective on AI is that we are at the very beginning of the AI revolution, and I think it's a try and error stage. We're experimenting with AI, and obviously it's not there yet. But in order to make it there, we need to experiment and understand what things need to be changed, what things we need to be aware of, and things that we need to address. So I don't necessarily think that AI is going to stay as it is. Obviously there are flaws, but
the ethics around it are mind-boggling, aren't they? I saw we were talking before we started recording about social media, and I watched, when I did go down my rabbit hole recently, that it was it Melinda Gates, or I can't, it might have actually been Donald Trump's wife, but it was one of the two of them, and I know they're not the same person, who were talking about that they want their children, they think that children will be taught in 5 years by robots in schools, and that robots will replace, and AI will replace teachers. And I'm like, when we're getting to that point, then I really hope I'm jumping off the earth, because that's just a shocking prediction.
Well, I hope it's not going to happen, to be honest with you. I mean, I think the technology facilitates education, but I think seeing, so I have a 6-year-old, and I talked to a number of different teachers who are basically fed up with the education system and they want to leave teaching. There has been a shift in within children, and also I think within parents after pandemic. And it's also basically highlights the fact that we are social animals and we need to interact with one another. So technology, yes, it's going to facilitate, in my opinion, but I think it's going to be super crucial to have those connections and interactions with people. Yeah, and this is something that we'll be paying premium for, probably.
I absolutely no doubt. And actually, I don't predict anything, because I actually I don't know. All I know is that I hope that the ethics committees and strategists behind these AI companies come to the forefront and call out anything that's going to prevent us from continuing as a human race, because I see equal measures of doom and gloom than I do where it's so advantageous. And actually, one of my sisters is a teacher, and we were chatting about it over the Christmas holidays when she was doing all the reports and all planning, and she, they've implemented EdTech obviously at her school, and she was doing the reports, and she said actually using AI, it's obviously some chatbot within the system. She said it is saving a lot of time, but at the same time she went, I've realized now how much I enjoyed doing my own report and writing it, as much as it would take 10 times as long. So I almost feel like not a revolution as such. It's interesting, isn't it? So I wanted to, before I let you go, I wanted to really talk around, because you're placing go-to-market people, and, what are the behaviors that you think make successful sales strategists? Because the people that listen to this show, of course, are either those doing the job as sales strategists. We are go-to-market ourselves as recruiters, aren't we? This is what we do. We go to market with people. So what do you think are the behaviors that make people successful?
As a go-to-market person, okay. Obviously, I'm in education, and education is more about relationship building, and I think that's when I started RecruitHer, and obviously the go-to-market and getting more leads, I focus more on the volume. So I big fan of Alex Hormozi. I don't know if you're familiar. Yeah, so watching, reading. I'm also a big fan of, I'm very spiritual. I don't know if you've heard of human design, but basically I had a human design reading with an amazing person, basically. And we were talking about the business aspect of my human design. So human design is basically, it's like a birth chart. It gives you more information about like how you operate well, how you like different aspects of your life, basically. So we were talking about business and Alex's style, way of working, my way of working. And it turned out that for me, going and doing volume is actually counterproductive. So for me, it's more important to have a strategy where I, build those relationships, build the trust, get to know the person and find out if we vibe. And I know
I love that word. It's my favorite word, vibe.
But it's quite tricky, I think, in the recruitment, because on one hand, it's a very often a numbers game, right? But I think it's also, you want to work with people that where values are kind of similar, and when your perspective goes in the same kind of direction. And it's right as like when I introduced myself as a recruiter, I stopped doing that, by the way, already. Not like I stopped doing that. Recruitment doesn't have a good reputation. And I feel like I don't want to have that reputation either, because my perspective on go-to-market and lead generation and kind of sales is a little bit different than maybe the recruitment that we used to know, obviously. Yeah. So I'm not, yeah. So I don't know if I answer your question, but I think it's the consistency, showing up, being your truthful self, and aligning the values, I think is quite important for me.
So important, honestly. But I think it's interesting that I guess you set the precedent, and the caveat that within EdTech, it's all about relationships. But I just think that it is all about relationships. And this is such a nice closure to the podcast, because I feel like it's a holistic combination of all the things we've talked about, actually, that in order for us to keep human and to ensure that AI, doesn't replace human beings in any sense of the word, because it's never going to be about that, and that you're adapting to markets and you become this niche expert, it is about relationships, and it's about your passion for something. And you clearly are somebody that's just, you have found, on this journey that you're on, because you never know what the next destination is. Although I do detect there might be a podcast host in there. You heard it here first. I'm manifesting it for you.
No, that's yes. I'm building that. I actually have few recordings already. It's just a matter of putting it up. Yes.
Oh,
yes.
so you've done the work. By the time this goes live, we're recording this in March. By the time this goes live, probably around May time, I'd like to see something from you. If you've already got the recording,
okay. I love that. Hold me accountable. Yes.
I'm holding you accountable. Let's see where she is at when this has gone out, and we will get her to comment that, yes, here's the link to the podcast, everybody.
Amazing. Yes.
Emilia,
loved it.
You are absolutely so inspiring. You seem really humble, and you're really passionate, caring person, and you're in a space that I've got so much respect for and admiration. And as citizens of planet Earth, we've all got a responsibility to ensure that, education and EdTech itself is, I guess, has the right sovereigns in place, has the right people, custodians of it, to ensure that the young people in the future of our society are educated in the right way. So thank you so much, and keep doing an amazing job.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed that, Lysha. Thank you.